Okay, my question is about relationships. I think I have a hard time trusting in relationships, especially like in romantic relationships. I have a hard time trusting men because my dad had affairs growing up when I was a child. So I think I became pretty certain that I don't want to get married because I subconsciously think that marriage is like the path to misery. But because I'm human, I still want to date and be in love. But whenever I get into relationships, I find that I get very like anxious and kind of worried about if I could trust this person instead of like enjoying the beginning and feeling like I'm in love. I just feel more anxious. So I think yeah, it comes from like wanting to probably protect myself and I don't want to get hurt for any reason. But I don't know if I can actually like truly open up and like really just enjoy relationships instead of like always feeling like on edge or like anxious. So that's my question.
네, 옳고 그름이라고 하는 것은 나의 기준, 나의 어떤 관점에서 비롯되는 것입니다.
So when you judge something to be right or wrong, all that judgment starts with your standard of what's right and what's wrong.
예를 들어서 한 남자와 여러 여자가 결혼을 하는 그런 일부 다처 사회에서 내가 태어났을 때부터 그런 사회라면 그것이 자연스럽습니다.
So for example, if you grew up in a culture that practices polygamy in which one man is allowed to marry and marries multiple women, then that state of being is natural.
반대로 여성이 한 명이고 남편이 여럿인 그런 사회가 있다면, 그런 사회에서 내가 자랐다면 그것이 자연스러운 겁니다.
And if you grew up in a matriarchal society in which one woman can have multiple husbands, then that state of being is natural.
또 남성 중심적인 사회에서 내가 태어나서 자랐다면 여성이 남성에게 순종하는 것이 자연스러운 겁니다.
And if you grew up in a very patriarchal or male-centered society, then it's very natural for a woman to be obedient to men.
또 남녀가 평등한 사회에서 내가 태어나서 자라면 그것이 자연스러운 것입니다.
But if you grew up in a society where there's gender equality, then that in itself is also natural to you.
내가 한국에서 태어나면 한국말 하는 것이 자연스럽고 미국에서 태어나면 미국말 하는 것이 자연스러운 것과 똑같습니다.
The same thing as if you grew up in Korea, you'll end up speaking Korean. If you grew up in the United States, you'll end up speaking English. It's natural.
우리들의 정신작용은 마치 소프트웨어처럼 어떤 정보를 입력하느냐, 어떤 앱을 까느냐, 거기에 따라서 이루어지는 것입니다.
So our mental function is a result of like which application you put on or which information you feed it.
그렇기 때문에 자기가 나를 만나는 남자는 나만 만나야 된다 하는 이런 기준을 갖고 있기 때문에 그렇지 않을까 우려가 되는 것.
So your anxiety from meeting men that they might cheat on you comes from the fact that you have a value system in you which you have determined that that man that I meet or I date can only date me.
근데 내가 너는 나만 만나야 돼라고 생각하거나 다른 사람 만나도 상관없어라고 생각하는 거는 나의 생각이지 상대에게는 아무 영향을 안 줍니다.
But whether you think it's right to only date to be monogamous in a relationship, or whether others can date other people, that's your judgment, that's your value system. That does not affect the behavior of anybody else.
그렇기 때문에 내가 나만 만나야 돼라고 기준을 갖고 있을 때 나만 만나면 다행인데 다른 사람을 만나게 되면 내가 그 사람을 믿지 못하게 됩니다.
So therefore, if you hold on to this monogamous value system as the correct one for yourself, that's good if your boyfriend or husband actually also shares that. But if your husband, or boyfriend does not, that brings about suffering to you.
근데 내가 다른 사람을 만날 수 있다 이렇게 기준을 두면 그 사람이 나만 만나도 괜찮고 다른 사람 만나도 내가 크게 문제가 없습니다.
But say you shifted your value system so that monogamy is good, but so is polygamy. Then at that point, it doesn't really cause you suffering whether that person is faithful to you or dates other people.
이럴 때 나만 만나야 돼 하는 내 기준에 맞게 상대를 가둬놓을 거냐, 아니면 내 기준을 버려버릴 거냐, 이 두 굴 중에 이제 하나 선택을 해야 됩니다.
So in this case, there's two choices, right? The first choice is, all right, so are you gonna stick with your value system for monogamy and insist that your partner also shares that value system, or are you gonna be more flexible in how you view monogamy in a relationship, so that your partners, whether they are monogamous or not, doesn't really affect you from a suffering perspective.
이럴 때 어떤 게 더 나를 자유롭게 하느냐 하는 겁니다.
So the question is, which one of these choices will make me freer?
상대를 내 기준에 맞게 만들려면 거기는 많은 힘이 듭니다.
In order to make your partner adhere to your value system, it takes a lot of energy.
선택하는 데도 힘이 들고
It's tough to make that choice, first of all.
또 그 기준에 가다 놓기 위해서 많은 노력을 해야 됩니다.
It's tough to select, the right person, first of all. And the second, you have to constantly expend energy to ensure that your partner you selected continues to be faithful to that value system.
또 거기서 벗어나게 되면 굉장히 상처를 입게 됩니다.
Then, of course, there's also the risk for you getting hurt greatly if that person decides not to.
근데 내가 그 기준을 놓아버립니다.
So you can decide to let go of that value system.
어떻게 하는 것은 그의 자유다 이렇게 둡니다.
And you say, let go of that standard you hold for yourself and go, whatever he wants to do is he is free to do so.
그의 행동에 따라 나도 선택을 하면 됩니다.
And based on his behavior, I can choose accordingly.
이렇게 하면 나는 아무런 애도 쓰지 않고 또 괴로울 일도 없습니다.
Then in that case, you don't have to expend too much effort, nor do you actually risk suffering because of his behavior.
자기가 어릴 때 엄마로부터 아버지가 부정한 짓을 했다 이런 얘기를 들어서 자기에게 그것이 어떤 피해의식, 트라우마로 간직됐기 때문에 자기가 지금 이런 어려움을 겪고 있는 것입니다.
So you're facing these difficulties because what happened as you're growing up as a child is, your father had affairs and your mother reacted very negatively or sadly to that and communicated that sadness to you and kind of remained with you as a trauma.
붓다의 가르침은 내가 어떻게 정신적으로 자유로워지느냐, 삶이 스트레스 없이 행복해지느냐를 가르치지 돈이 많은지 버느냐, 적게 버느냐, 지위가 높았냐, 낮았냐, 윤리적이냐, 아니냐 이런 걸 논하는 게 아닙니다.
So what Buddha teaches is really the central question of Buddha's teaching is how can I make myself more free from stress, free from suffering as I live my life. Has nothing to do with kind of teaching a specific value system, specific ethics, or learning how to make more money, make yourself emotionally more joyful or whatnot.
내가 어떤 자세를 가질 때 내가 괴로움이 없느냐를 얘기하지 상대를 어떻게 하겠다 하는 것을 논하는 게 아닙니다.
So what perspective should I bring bear to my life in order to free myself, to make myself more free? Has nothing to do with the question as what can I bring bear so I can control my environment or affect the behavior of others.
나를 위해서 상대가 어떻게 해야 된다 이런 것을 하는 것은 내가 아직 자립되지 못했다는 겁니다.
And if your perspective is that somebody else has to do something or has to adhere to something in order to make yourself happy or free you from suffering, it means that you're not fully autonomous or independent.
나는 주인이고 나는 자유인이고 나는 붓다이기 때문에 내가 남을 위해서 배려는 해줄 수 있지만 배려받고 싶다, 배려해줘야 된다, 나를 좀 어떻게 해달라 이런 거는 아직도 어린애 같은 생각이기 때문에 그것은 수행자의 길이 아닙니다.
Because you are the master of your own life and you seek freedom for your own life. You are the Buddha in essence. That's why you can actually choose to tolerate, choose to be nice, kind to others. But if you're asking others to do something for you in order for yourself to be happy or fulfilled or free, then you're still in an immature stage. And that's not the perspective you should bring to bear on your life as a spiritual practitioner.
다시 정리해서 말씀드리면 첫째는 어릴 때 어머니로부터 어머니의 피해를 듣고 형성된 피해의식이 작동하고 있는 거고요. 두 번째는 자기가 아직 자윤이 못 되고 어린애 같은 누군가로부터 이렇게 보호받고 싶고 도움받고 싶은 게 근저에 깔려 있기 때문에 이런 두려움이 생기는 것입니다.
You know, to kind of summarize is that one, you have inherited this trauma, right, from your mother, suffering from your father's affairs as you grew up. And that's kind of, functioning underneath all this. But, as a free person, as a master of your own life, you don't want to be protected by others. You don't want your, sense of well-being to be a result or consequence of others' behavior towards you.
지금 젊은이지 않습니까? 질문하는 사람이
You're a young person.
상대가 나를 좋아하면 나도 좋으면 좋아하면 되고 상대가 나를 좋아해도 싫으면 싫다면 되고 상대가 나를 좋아하다가 좋아하지 않겠다면 그건 거의 자유니까 오케이 하면 되지 그게 뭘 두려워할 일이에요.
So if somebody likes you, and if you don't like them, you can say no. If somebody you like them, if somebody doesn't like you, you can say okay, goodbyes. And you know what? If you start dating because you like each other, but somebody, your partner actually changes his mind, then you can also freely say goodbye. So kind of go with the flow.
왜 자유를 원하면서 자꾸 자신과 남을 속박하려고 합니까?
You claim you want freedom, but at the same time, you're actually trying to cage yourself and your partner.